Today I'm going to talk about our values and our beliefs. What are our values? Where do they come from? Why have we got them? And how do they affect us? And how do they affect our decisions in everyday life? Our values and our beliefs literally determine our success or our failure in life. They are the source of our success or our failure in our life. So it's really important to understand why we have the values that we have, where they came from, and how can it be useful to even change those. Most of us view our values as set in stone, as something that's the way it is. It's right and wrong. It's black and white. It's what it is. It can't be changed. Our values, just like our beliefs, are things that we've learnt over time. There's things that's been taught to us as we've grown up. They're not something that just is fact. They're something that we've learnt. And if it's something that we learnt, then that means that we can unlearn them, or different people in different walks of life learn different values. And it's the exact same thing with your beliefs. Think about how we learn, how we get our values as we're growing up. It starts when we're very young kids. Okay, we get rewarded, we get shown love for doing certain things, for having certain behaviors. And then we get ignored or punished or get negative feelings from doing something that is deemed as a negative. So this is how we start learning our values. They're implanted from us by our parents, and they're obviously trying to instill in us their values. Now this changes again as we grow a bit older. We get to go to school and we start hanging around different people, different influences who have different values themselves. So in order to gain the acceptance of our peers, in order for them to play with us and give the attention that we're after, then we have to adopt their values to a certain level to keep them happy and keep them in a place where they want to spend time with us, which for us is a reward. Then again, as we grow older, it changes again. We finish school, we go through different peers, and it changes as we go through different groups and we hang around with different people. They have different sets of values, and so we start adopting them. Same thing happens again when we go to work. We end up with another crowd of people that have different values again. The workplace has the values that they want to instill. The people that we work with have values, and the same thing, we adopt their values to gain their acceptance and to be accepted by those people and to be rewarded in that way. So as we grow up, we're learning all these values, and this doesn't stop. This is part of the reason why choosing the people you hang around is so important to your failure or your success in life, because you will adopt the values of the people that you hang around. It happens over time, it happens slowly, but it's a guaranteed thing that you will start to adopt at least a good percentage of those values. Now, what are our values? There's a couple of different types of values. There's what we call toward values and away from values. So toward values are, they're states that we're trying to get towards. They're states that make us feel good, that give us what we want, that we try to aim towards. Towards values would be things like success, adventure, outrageousness, love, comfort, security, those kind of things that bring us good feelings. Now, away from values are things that we try to avoid. So these would be things like frustration, anger, physical pain, depression, humiliation, any of these feelings or states that bring us negative, they don't bring us positive feelings or outcomes. So these are the things that we try to avoid. We all have the same values. Okay, but what we do is we all rank them in order differently. So we all have a big long list of values, which is, one list would be things that we try to get towards, things we try to get. And we have a big list of values, which is things that we try to avoid, which is the frustration, anger, those kinds of things that don't make us feel good. But we all rank these in a different order. For example, if you're the type of person that values comfort, security, love, that kind of thing, then that's the order of your values. And then down the bottom would be the opposite things, which would be adventure, outrageousness, those kind of things. So can you see how, if you're the type of person that values comfort and security and certainty, can you see how your life would be different from if your values were at the top of your list of values was things like outrageousness and adventure and uncertainty? You get a thrill out of that. Can you see how the difference in values would determine your lifestyle, would determine the different choices you make. Someone who values comfort and security isn't as likely to jump at the fact by their choice of going skydiving, for example, when it's suggested by your friends. Okay, that's not on their list, not at the top of their list of values, it's further down the bottom. So they're more likely to not want to do that kind of activity. Whereas someone who values highly adventure and outrageousness and all that kind of stuff, they're more likely to jump at the idea of skydiving. They're going to want to do it. Okay, this isn't a black and white setting always the case, but your values highly determine the type of life you have, because it determines the choices that you make. So it's handy to know that we can actually change the things that we value more importantly than others. Let's look at the difference between someone who values freedom and someone who values security in relation to relationships in their lives. So can you see, someone who values freedom might be a bit more reluctant to get into relationships and to commitment because their value is freedom. And someone who values security would likely be more happy to get into that sort of situation because it gives them that security. So can you see how the hierarchy of your values determines the choices that you make in your life? And you don't know this is just by default, because this is just the values that you've got implanted. But they really do influence the choices that you make. And as we know, the choices that we make are what determines what we have in our lives. The order of your values determines everything. It determines how you evaluate every choice you've got. It determines every decision you make. What if we took the person who valued freedom and outrageousness and excitement at the very top of their values, and down the bottom they had security and those other safe values? What would happen, do you think, if we swapped those around? Would that influence that person, as in, would that change the way they value things and the decisions they make and their lifestyle? Absolutely would, because all of a sudden they're valuing things differently. They're looking at opportunities or choices, and instead of looking at it from the perspective of wanting security, they're looking at it from the perspective of wanting excitement and uncertainty. It would definitely change the choices that they make. Throughout our life coaching programs and process, this is a really big part of what we do, is we dive into working out what your values are, what the list of the priorities of your values are and your beliefs, and working out how we can change what they are in a way that's going to help you get towards your goals. Because sometimes you have values and you have conflicts between away from and toward values that literally get in the way and stop you achieving your goals and achieving things you want, because there's conflicts there. On one hand, you're trying to get towards something like security, and on the other hand, you're trying to get away from a conflicting value like depression. And in the past, you've had that security from a relationship and something's gone bad and it's caused that depression. So in your brain, you've neurologically linked up that security from relationships ultimately causes that feeling of depression that's also high on your list that trying to get away from. So on one hand, you're wanting a new relationship, you're wanting the security, but your brain is trying to protect you from those negatives that you're trying to avoid, being the depression that ultimately, as you've learned from your past, comes from a relationship. So you unknowingly, you sabotage yourself. You sabotage those relationships because your brain is trying to protect you from the negative that it thinks is coming, because that's what's happened in your past. As we all know, your past doesn't have to determine your future. We can unlearn these things. We can change the hierarchy of your values, and so that you can stop these conflicts, so you can then go for the things that you want without your unconscious mind getting in your way by trying to protect you from things that it's learnt will happen, or things that it's trying to get you away from. So that's a big part of the life coaching process, should you look at doing that at some stage, is going through your personal values and your personal beliefs and making sure you've got values and you've got beliefs that assist you in going where you want to go, not things that actually deter you from getting your goals. So how do we work out what our values are? So I'm going to put an exercise with this audio, which is a worksheet that you can go through to help you go through this in each area of your life and work out what your values personally are. Now, by working this out and knowing what your values are, you're away from values and you're towards values, you can then literally start to change your values just by being aware of what they are and then making decisions with that understanding that you're making that decision based on your values and questioning, is this the best decision, or am I just making this decision because I'm trying to get toward or away from something? And that's directed by your values. So to find out what your values are, then we just need to ask ourselves a question and point that question at each area of our lives. So that question is, what's most important to me in blank? Okay, so if you ask yourself, what's most important to me in my life? All right, then you're going to come up with a list of values. Now you just need to sit down, you need to think about this, and you need to give it some good time and thought and try and list all the values you can think of from order at the top of the page from most important down to least important for you. Now there's something to note here when you're answering this question. What's most important to me in my life, for example? You might come up with things like a family and money. Now, these things aren't actually values. These things are what we call means values. The values that we want are things like security, love, contribution, excitement. Let me explain this. When you say what's most important to me in my life and you answer family, this is a means value, which means that family isn't a value. Family is a means to an end. What you really value is not the family, but you value the things that that family gives you. So that family might give you love and security and happiness. These are the values, okay? The family isn't the value. The family is the thing that gives you the value. It's the tool that gives you the values that you're after. So it's important to notice the difference here between these two things. Same as money. If you value money, for example, you don't value money. What you value is the things that you think money can give you. Okay, being security, adventure, freedom. These things that you think you can get from having money are the values, not the actual money. So it's important to understand the difference. So just think about that as you do it. And with each answer, think, is that thing a means to an end? Is that get me the values that I want, or is that the actual value? So that's important to think about. So go through this in each area. What's most important to me in my relationships? And list a big list of values that you can think of, everything from most important down to least important. What's most important to me in my business or my job situation or in my workplace? And the same thing, list the values. Go through that in each area of your life. So this is how you can go through. I'll set up a worksheet which will help guide you through this and ask the questions for each area. But this is just something that takes some time, it takes some thought. But once you understand what your personal values are, then you can start to question them. Are they really helpful in what I want to do? Are they getting me where I want to go? Is there conflicting values when you look between you're away from, you're towards values? So when you say what's most important to me in my relationships, in my family, for example, then you say do a list of away from values, do a list of towards values, and you might see some conflicts there. And once you see some conflicts, then you can make massive influence there just by being aware that you've got those values that are conflicting. So once we've gone through each area of our life and we know what our toward values are in each different area of our life, then we're going to start to work on our away from values. So what we're going to do here is you're going to ask yourself, what are some of the feelings that I try to avoid? Okay, now this can be difficult. This one can be a bit challenging for people. If you find that you find this one hard to come up with answers and put them in a list of importance, then ask yourself, what are some of the things in the past that have happened to me that I really hated? Okay, because that'll point you in the right direction towards things that you are most likely to try and want to avoid. Now, once we got both of these lists, then we can start comparing them. So why is this so important? Why is it so important to know what your values are? Your values literally determine what it is that your brain is focused on. It determines what it's trying to get you towards and what it's trying to get you away from. So once you know what your values are, then you know what your brain is focusing on. Your unconscious mind, what it's focusing on. What is it trying to get you towards that causes you pleasure? And what's it trying to get you away from that it's learned in the past causes you pain? This is why this exercise is so important. So take the time to go through this exercise. Spend the time, spend whatever it takes. Don't rush this. Go through each area and give it some really good thought. List your values in both the away from and the toward values, and really open your eyes to why it is that you make some of the decisions that you make. And once you're aware, then you can really have control and you can know why it is you make the decisions that you make. And that's when you really take control of your life and your destiny. Let's now have a look at the relationship between your values and your beliefs. So your values and beliefs go hand in hand. Picture your values as being the target. Your values is the thing that you're trying to get. How do you know if you've reached that thing you're trying to get? Well, it's your beliefs that determine that. If your value is success and you believe that you need to make $1 million every year to be successful, then it's going to be hard for you to reach those feelings of success. The problem here as well is then the goalposts change as well. So once you get there, that your belief about being successful might change to you need to make $2 million a year. If your belief about being successful is that you just need to get up in the morning and wake up and you're alive and enjoy life, then that's an easy target for you to get. It's easy for you to be happier in your life because your belief every morning, if your belief is that if you wake up and you're alive, then you're successful, then every morning that you wake up, you give yourself a good chance of being happy because you believe that you're successful. Okay, if your target is $1 million a year and you only earn $500,000 a year, then you're likely to not be as happy because you don't believe that you're successful and you highly value success. Okay, so this is how the two work together. This is why it's important to understand the relationship between your values and your beliefs, because you can then look at changing your values and you can look at changing your beliefs. If your value is $1 million a year and you only make $500,000 a year, then you can change that belief. You can say, okay, well maybe I'm successful if I make $200,000 a year. That way you give yourself the chance at believing, you believe that you're successful. Just bring the goalposts closer to you. Make your beliefs something that's easy to achieve, so that then you obviously give yourself happiness. Because if you want success and you believe that you're successful because you've made that target easy, then you're going to be happy. So this is why we just make it easier for ourselves to be happy. What we're doing by changing our beliefs is we're just saying, I am successful now, therefore I'm happy because I'm successful. You can still have massive goals, you can still go for them, you can still put the work in to get them, and you can still do what needs to be done. What we're trying to do here is start to make you aware so that you can design your values and you can design your beliefs in a way that set you up for success, that make you feel happy, that make you feel alive every day. You can do that every day. You don't have to wait for anything. You can change your physique, you can change your breathing, you can imagine that you're where you are. You can change the goalposts so that you believe that you've reached success or whatever your values are. And you can feel that every day. And that is how you determine where you go in your life. So our beliefs are learned the same way that our values are. They're taught to us from our past experiences. They're taught to us from people around us, from our influences in our lives. So we can change what we believe and we can change our values. And when we do that and we set ourselves up to enjoy life, then we can enjoy life right now. We can be happy right now. We don't have to wait for anything. And that's the purpose of understanding the relationship between our values and our beliefs, and understanding that we can influence them, is to get ourselves in a place where we're happy right now. If you're happy right now, then you focus on that. You find more reasons to be happy. Your life just snowballs in happiness. And that's the idea, is to create a life that you love, that you want to live. And that's the life coaching process. That's the gist of this course, is to create for yourself a life that you love and a life that you enjoy. And by going through this process, by knowing your values, by knowing your beliefs, then you give yourself to control to really start to influence that in your life.